Hey ladies and gentlemen, this is Glenn from OmniGamer.com. I am joined by my good buddy Chris. Go ahead and say hi, Chris.
Hey everybody.
He's also known as Lord of Tomes, and I'm also known as Vagrant on the OmniGamer.com forums, and we are going to be bringing you some video game discussion. We don't really have a name for this little segment that we're going to be doing on the YouTube channel, but we're going to come up with something eventually. But we have 3 topics we're going to be covering in this short little video. Not really too short, but however long it goes is how long it goes. But me and Chris have been talking about some video game media and some things that have been going on in the video game markets, and we kind of more or less talk about each other's, ideas and our little opinions on certain things. And the first thing that me and Chris are going to cover is the Oculus Rift being bought by Facebook, and I'm going to let you start, Chris. So go ahead.
Well, I watched a Adam Sessler and a few of his friends talking about the Oculus Rift, because it's the big thing right now. Everybody wants to talk about it, and even when you look it up on like Google, which is what I've got a page over here open for, the top thing is, what does the Oculus Rift backlash tell us? Facebook just isn't cool. That's the basic vibe that everybody's going to have towards this, is that why is Facebook getting involved in something that's the video game industry? Because, you can't really use the Oculus Rift for Farmville.
I think that was basically a lot of people's reactions. It was just, what is Facebook doing buying the Oculus Rift? I think one of the major things was just that Facebook has no place in the video game market.
Right.
It's just kind of a little jarring that Facebook would actually just spend. Do you remember how much they've spent on buying the Oculus Rift?
I think it was $2 billion, I do believe. Yeah, $2 billion. So that's a lot of money. But that really goes into I'm not a conspiracy theorist or whatever you want to call it, but what we're seeing a lot now, ever since the economy crashed back in, 2008, a lot of major companies are buying out smaller companies. Now, the whole thing with Oculus Rift is that it started and it had a Kickstarter, and so it was backed by a bunch of people. And the whole reason for Kickstarter, and I totally got this from Adam Sessler, so all respect to Adam. But the whole thing with the Kickstarter is that all it does is it helps that project to get funding so that it can get into a higher rank of funding. Because, yeah, you might have some big funders on Kickstarter, supporting like $2,000 or something like that. I've seen up to like $10,000 on a project. But really, that's a drop in the bucket for the kind of money that Oculus Rift needs for their R&D department. So, you get off Kickstarter with people like you and me putting $5, $10, $100 into a project that we're interested in, and then that gets it to be able to launch itself towards another larger company that actually has money to spend on this kind of thing, that can back the program and give it an R&D department if it doesn't have one, or help them find one. And then basically what happened is Facebook came in, and I guarantee you it wasn't just Facebook. There were a bunch of other companies that were probably in the same boat, trying to say, hey, we're interested. It was like a bid, is what I'm guessing. And Facebook just happened to take the cake on it.
I didn't really understand Facebook's, the big wigs behind Facebook, their executive decision to buy something, or to spend $2 billion on something that, like I had said, that they really don't know anything about, more or less, just because they're just buying something that they don't. Like, I can't really say anything more than that. They don't know what they're doing with it. I feel like they're not going to do what the product was intended to do, just because it's Facebook. And we've talked about this before, where Facebook is constantly going through a quality change, where it's either good one year or it's really bad one year.
And I describe that as the high schooler complex where guys and girls, we both did it. You're in high school and you're changing constantly. One week you'll be wearing all black, and then the next week you'll be wearing some preppy clothes or skater clothes, and that's what Facebook seems to be doing. They're constantly changing their appearance. Now, half of that is to keep up with, the social media needs, because of smartphones and things like that. And then the other half is trying to keep up with the the times and the generations and stuff like that. But that little phase that they went through where they put a Facebook on your Facebook so you can Facebook while you're Facebooking, that was kind of ridiculous. And
I remember like when these small little apps were just popping up all over the place, like Farmville and things like that. And it kind of made it seem like Facebook was trying to become more than what a social place to chat with your friends and become like a yearbook, more or less, to check in with people that you had met or a couple days ago. It's grown to something more, but it has dabbled in video games, as we can see, but these are just really casual mobile games. So for something like the Oculus Rift to be on Facebook's plate is just I can see why a lot of people were shocked to see Facebook pick something up like that.
Yeah. Now, I mean, the only thing that I can say, and again, straight out of Adam Sessler's conversation, was that the guy that started Oculus Rift, the project, he's like really like this is his life. This project is his baby. And everybody's under the impression that he wouldn't make a decision to go along with Facebook and say yes to the $2 billion unless he knew for a fact that that was going to further his product in a good way. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's a positive aspect. A negative aspect, however, is something like the fact that a Notch dropped off of the program. He does not want Minecraft involved in this. Now, I think it was either Sony or Nvidia. I want to say Nvidia. Nvidia responded to Notch's comment and said, "Well, we've got your back," which pretty much means that they have their own VR program. Mm-hmm. And now, because they've released kind of a hint that they have one, I actually saw earlier today on one of my news feeds that Sony is.
Yeah, I was actually about to bring that up. It seems like someone behind the video game, more or less, doors or whatever, they're trying to go towards the next step, and that's probably going to be VR. But as we all seen in the past, virtual reality is it's a tricky subject, just because the technology is just not there. Now that it's like a decade later, because the last attempt was like the Virtual Boy, and
yep.
Most of us know that the Virtual Boy was just a horrible system that Nintendo brought out. And I don't know, for them to bring it back up and take it seriously like this, with the Oculus Rift, Sony's answer to the Oculus Rift, and then maybe the idea that there's other companies that they're trying to bring out something virtual reality, it just makes me think, like, is that supposed to be the next step? Or is it just supposed to be a peripheral for all these, new consoles? But for a company let's say that Nvidia did have a VR peripheral for a PC or something like that, would we see peripherals for all consoles? Would the Nintendo have something for this? Would like, their name escapes me right now. What's Nvidia's main competitor?
Radeon.
Yep, Radeon. And it just makes me think, is that really the next step for video game consoles? Is virtual reality, if they can perfect the technology?
Yeah, my biggest thing with the whole virtual reality is you're gonna put on this headset, and for me, if I put on a headset, I'm going to have a tendency to run around. Now, when I was a child, I don't know if you're going to remember this or not, but there was a there was a virtual tank simulator, and it was the coolest thing. You held it like binoculars, and I
You
got
talking
this
about
when
like
I was
those arcade cabinets where you would literally have
Yep.
a thing right in front of you, and it was literally like you were there.
Yes, yeah. Um, I had one of those when I was a kid, and um, well, went to one of those when I was a kid. I didn't have one. There was one in the skating rink up in Charleston, and those were really cool. Now there was another thing that I had, like I said, that was like binoculars, and it was a small toy. You could buy it in like Walmart. I think it was probably worth like $20-$40 at the time, and it gave like really crappy graphics, and so that was back then. Now I was 5, and so I'd play this game, and I'd go outside to play the game, and while I was playing the game, I'd hold the binoculars on, and I would like run in my yard in the direction that I moved the tank. So like I'm sitting there completely blinded to the actual reality that's in front of me, my yard, and be pretending that I'm this tank. Kind of run around my yard. Can't tell you how many times I like ran into bushes and stuff. But that was one of my big things about virtual reality. I mean, I think there was a movie that kind of went along with virtual reality in the future, and like how that's gonna be. And it was like this room, and it seemed like there was a treadmill on the ground, and the way that the treadmill operated is whichever direction you ran or moved in, the treadmill would move in the opposite direction so that you would technically stay in place in the center of the room.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my big thing is like, that's expensive technology to put a treadmill in the ground, you know, or even have something maybe that you could stand on. I mean, I know that virtual reality goes so much farther than that. You could just sit down on a couch and play the darn thing if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is to be able to look to your left and your right, and up and down. But as a human, we start connecting, like mixing reality and virtual reality, and so you get a little bit confused between the two and like what you should do. Your body wants to do something, and you want to do that, and you follow that, and then you figure out, well, I just fell off the couch because I was trying to like look over the side of this hole in the ground or whatever.
Well, I was actually gonna say, have you ever played the PS3 exclusive Heavy Rain?
I feel like I did. That was a while back, I feel like.
Well, one of the characters in Heavy Rain, I can't remember his name right now. He has these pair of like sunglasses, more or less, that he puts on, and it brings up like a virtual reality kind of simulator that helps him find clues in like things in the real world. But it's like he can see certain things with the glasses on, and it was kind of like you were in a virtual reality while playing a game as while playing the character. And it makes me think like maybe something like that would be really cool to have, and if that was going to be the way it worked, then it would work very well. Like because he was able to see the actual real reality, but there would be things that he would see because of the glasses that were on that would blend with reality, and that way you wouldn't be confused, nor would you like run the risk of running into a pole or something like that.
Right. There's actually technology out there that exists that I think you actually have one of them. The 3DS.
Yeah.
They had the VR cards. I don't know if you ever played with those, but it was like a card, and you could take the card. This is my insurance card, but you could take the card, and then you could place it on the table, and then it would actually, you would look at your 3DS, and your 3DS would scan the card, like this, and you got your camera down there, and you're scanning the card, and then it would create a virtual reality on the table or whatever surface you place the card on, and you could. There were several different cards that they had. The one that I played, the 3DS was pretty much like a gun, and you would try to shoot the targets And so, like, let's say that you place it on a table. Well, you'd have to walk around the table to get to the different views because there would be targets behind objects. And so it creates that 3D world right there in front of you, but you have to actually move around that world because you can't literally go in it. I guess you could go over it.
Yeah.
But you'd have to move around, that was a really interesting thing. And as far as I know, that's the only thing that's really gotten that far.
Yeah. I was gonna say, because I actually brought up my 3DS, and I showed it in a shot a second ago. It's really something that it's not there yet. The 3DS virtual VR cards, or AR cards, I think they're called, alternate reality cards.
That's probably it.
When you lay it down, you have to be in a very, very, very specific angle, and you also have to have a lot of light, and it almost literally requires you to have like a big lamp right next to you. It's very, very picky. One of the games that comes with the 3DS is called Face Raiders, and you can just take a picture of yourself and you'll see like these little things flying on the screen, and you just shoot at them. It's a really kind of weird game, but it does toy with that sense of alternate reality, where it brings up things that the camera will see with the 3DS, but since it's a game, you can kind of play with actual reality.
Right.
And it's kind of cool the way it happens like that. But I think we've talked about the Oculus Rift enough, so let's move on to our next topic, which is the idea that Titanfall and Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes are kind of bringing the idea that these game publishers and developers can charge gamers a substantial amount for games that feel incomplete.
An obscene amount, really, because I haven't played the game, and based off of what I'm hearing about it, I never would, especially if I had to pay for it. Maybe if I went over to somebody else's house and they had it, I'd pick it up. But Ground Zeroes, it's like an hour long. There's actually people on there that have beat it in 6 minutes. That's the time that I saw. Now, that's a speed run. Yeah, it's a speed run, whatever. Still, you should not be able to beat something in 6 minutes. That's a little ridiculous.
Well, the PS4 and Xbox One editions are $40. $40 for a game that you can most likely beat in about an hour. A lot of people justify it by saying that, well, you can play it on different difficulties. You have extra side missions that you can do, but there's people that are beating the game doing the side missions, doing it on hard mode, and still in an hour. And then people still defend it, saying, well, you can try and get a better score and get a higher ranking on leaderboards, and it's just, most players aren't going to care about that kind of thing. The first time you play it, you might try and get 100% on it, but still beating it within an hour or so, it's not enough. It's not justification to charge $40 for the game. I think it's $30 if you get a digital edition, and I think it's $30 for the older console versions, which is the PS3 and the Xbox 360 versions. The Xbox One and PS4 have exclusive missions to them. The Xbox One has an exclusive Raiden mission, and the PS4 has an exclusive Snake mission.
Yeah, the classic stuff. Yeah,
classic Snake, and then I think... I don't know what the Xbox One side mission is called. I don't remember. I know you play as Raiden for it, though.
Yeah.
But it's not enough to charge $40 for, and it's just basically a glorified demo. That's $40, though. The problem is it's $40. And a lot of people relate this to the Dead Rising 2 Case Zero, our Xbox Live Arcade downloadable thing that they had when Dead Rising 2 was coming out, saying that the Dead Rising 2 Case Zero was kind of like a demo, but I would have to say that I would disagree, because I think Dead Rising 2 Case Zero was only $10 or $15. The game was about 4 or 5 hours long, but it had enough content in the game that made it seem like it was justified for about a $10 game.
Right.
You got You got 4 or 5 hours out of it. The things that you did in that little mini episode carried on to the real game. Even though I heard Ground Zeroes will carry on into the real game, but there's a $30 difference there. It's a downloadable game over a retail game that you can get a physical copy for, that you can beat in an hour. That's $40, and then Case Zero was $10 for a downloadable title.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my big thing is like resale value. Because I'm not big into selling games. I do not actually sell any of my games. You can see some of them behind me. Those are just some of my favorites that I pulled out of a box because my current living situation is like temporary. So my Steam profile, I have like 200 or more games, and I've got a Steam and an Xbox and a PS3 and a GameCube and a Wii, and actually I have the Ouya too. But anyways, I got a bunch of consoles and a whole bunch of games, and I do not sell games for the pure fact that at some point I'll experience the like nostalgic feeling of like missing it, and so I'll like want to go back and play it, and so I don't sell games. But for those of the people that do, reselling games is big. So how much is Ground Zeroes going to be worth after the actual Metal Gear Solid game comes out, and 1 or 2 years after that? If they're charging $40 for it now, and the thing's going to sell for like 40 cents or 20 cents or whatever GameStop's going to give you for it, then do you feel like you could really justify that? Because I mean, how I justify money for a game is, and this is probably really bad, but if you go to the movies, depending on whether you're military or civilian, you're going to pay like $6, $7, sometimes even $20, depending on what type of theater you go to, and you're paying, let's just say, $10 on average for around 2 hours of entertainment. Well, you look at like a video game like Skyrim, for example. How many hours would you say you could put into Skyrim? Probably like, I don't know, over 100, 200.
Yeah. Skyrim has an endless amounts of content.
Especially on PC, because
I have
of all
like
the
over 100
mods.
hours on the game, and I never even touched the story.
Yeah. And so it was $60 when it came out, right?
Yep, $60.
So I mean, $10 for 2 hours, and then $60 for anywhere between 100 to 200 hours, depending on how addicted to the game you are. I think that's a decent buy. But $40 for 1 hour, okay, now that's 4 times the money that you're paying for a movie, but half the actual length of a movie. And then not only that, but it's just a tease. That's all that the game was, is a big tease, And I heard that the gameplay's awesome. I mean, it looked really fun.
I've heard nothing but good things about the actual hour that you can play.
Yeah.
It's probably very, very solidly made. It's a AAA game. It's a long-standing franchise. It's something that you would expect the game to, run well, to actually have a really good story, but not for the price point and the amount of gameplay that you get. It's definitely not worth it. Yeah. And that leads into Titanfall, which is a little different in my opinion, but I think you disagreed a little bit, and we're talking about the story campaign of Titanfall.
Yep,
and you're holding up your Titanfall case right now.
Right here. Titanfall, I think it's a really good game. And I really like Angry Joe's video, because he kind of linked it with the Ground Zero thing, where you're paying so much money for this game, and you're just not getting the content that relates to the money. So the multiplayer in Titanfall, awesome. They've got some really new ideas, parkour, which you could say, it was stolen from Brink, and Brink was a complete failure of a game.
Well, I mean, you can kind of justify by saying most games probably take ideas from other games and just perfect them.
Right.
So Titanfall kind of took the parkour elements from Brink and made it 10 times better.
Oh yeah, they definitely did. And then also mechs fighting, which it's not the first time that we've seen mechs fight. Right before I bought Titanfall, I've actually been putting a whole lot of hours into Hawken. And I don't even think Hawken is a complete game yet.
I think it's still in early access.
Yeah, still in early access. And I played it before it was even released onto Steam. Back in the early days, and it was a really good game. And the mechanics are completely different. And I mean, I was a big fan of the Mech Warrior series, and there were a few other mechs games that I played. That actual virtual reality game that I was telling you about that I played at the Ice Palace in Charleston, that was a mech game, and it was awesome, amazing. I mean, mech games are just the idea of mechs is awesome. I mean, Gundam, that's pretty much the same thing. There was a game that came out on the PlayStation 2, I think it was, that was based around mechs. I cannot remember what the name of that game was, but it was absolutely amazing.
Did you ever play Chrome Hounds?
I did, yes. My initial reaction to Chrome Hounds was that it was a little slow, and I feel like that's a big tendency with mech games is speed, because you get in this huge hulking robotic body, and I mean it's gonna move slow and a little clunky, which is like what Titanfall took out of it, is that whole part. Now yes, when you're walking you do move a little slow, and even running you're still moving a little bit slow.
Well, Titanfall, I believe, blends the pilot gameplay and the mech gameplay like beautifully.
Yes.
Because it just, even though some of it you can argue when you're in the mech is kind of slow, it still doesn't feel as slow as it could be.
Right.
You still feel like you're moving across the battlefield in a decent amount of time. Plus, there's thrusters, there's ways to like dodge and avoid combat like in a fast-paced way, and it feels really, really good.
Right. Yeah,
now
does.
the point of this being in this kind of topic, Metal Gear Ground Zeroes is an hour game for $40. Titanfall is $60, but it's awesome gameplay. We both think that's a really good game. We were trying to get to the point of the story campaign, that is, or a quote-unquote story campaign of Titanfall, because they marketed it as a game that seamlessly blends story, single player, and multiplayer, and it's just not the case.
Yeah, if I could, I mean, this is the back of the case here. If my camera will focus, it's not really focusing. But anyways, all you see on here is like a few pictures and believe the hype, and then some stuff up here, and this says crafted by developers, some of the key developers behind Call of Duty, and it just talks about like cool things about the game. What they do not boast at all is storyline, and they don't. I mean, they boast a little bit about the multiplayer. It says it's raising the bar for multiplayer gaming, and that's all fine and well. But really what they did is they didn't even meet the bar for multiplayer gaming, because there's no grouping. You cannot join a party or create a party. So if you want to get in a thing with your friends and stick with your friends, forget about it. It's going to be so ridiculously difficult, and it's just completely non-existent. And you cannot. I mean, a big thing about multiplayer gaming is, if you and me want to play a game, and we do this every now and then, a multiplayer game, you have the option of either joining a server and playing with other people, or you can play on like a private server with you and just your friends. You can't do that on Titanfall. There's no such thing as a private server. You cannot kick people out of your game session if you want to, because you have no control over that.
I was actually going to say you can't do the Halo party. Basically, you wouldn't be able to create a room, make it private, and then have LAN parties at your buddy's apartment or something like that. It's just not going to be possible with Titanfall.
Yeah, and I mean the story. As far as that goes, I've played through both of the stories, and I think overall time was about 4 hours, and that's, I think, average for what everybody's getting. Now there's two. It's one story, one single story, and you get a total of 15 maps. I think that you play actually every single map in the storyline. I could be wrong on that. I can't remember exactly. But basically, it's one story, and then there's two sides of the story. The militia, and then the IRC, I think is what it's called.
IMC, I think.
IMC, yeah. And so which one you start on, I believe, is actually random. So when you pop in the game, you might start out as militia, and then you might also start off as the IMC. I think it's random, and then also like what they need for the next game to be played. But anyways, you have to complete those mission storylines to unlock Titans. So in the beginning, when you start off the game, you unlock, I do believe, the Atlas, and that's the first mech you get. And then after that, you unlock the other two by completing the storyline. So the storyline just really doesn't have a lot to offer. The world that they have created is awesome. There's a whole lot of things that look really cool. The spaceships look cool. The mechs are cool. The technology to be able to do all the parkour element stuff. And then also like the aliens that you see every now and then. I don't even know if you want to call them aliens. It doesn't seem like they're sentient in the fact that they can like speak to you or anything. But there are it's some form of alien life forms out there. You've got these like dragon things, and that look kind of more like pterodactyls to me. And then these huge long-necked dinosaurs, you know, and they're massive. And part of this whole storyline was, you know, we gotta protect this, or otherwise the alien things are gonna attack this base, and we're gonna all die and stuff. Well, you never once get to fight any of those things. You can actually shoot and kill some of the pterodactyl dragons. I've done it, and blowing them up is pretty fun and satisfactory. And they actually kind of interact with the NPCs that run around the map a little bit, but you don't interact with them in a way beyond that. So it's kind of half-ass, I guess I would say. There's so much lore in the world that you don't get introduced to fully. You know, you get to see a little bit of a snippet here, and then, hey, here's the multiplayer part.
Well, I was actually gonna say, like, there's just, I was watching a couple of one of my friends play Titanfall. The best way to describe it is, like, half the time I'm watching, I never really get a lot of information from the story. It's just, there's a bunch of shit going on in the background while you're, you know, fighting, trying to capture points or win attrition points, and there's just a whole bunch of chatter in the background that you barely even can think about and be like, oh, so that's what's going on in this battle.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's several times when you're playing the missions that like a little camera, you know, or video will pop up, and so that video will take up this whole section of your screen right here, and now you can't see
still
anything.
Half the time you barely even care about the character that's talking, or you
you don't
barely
care
even
about
know his story. It's there's just not enough there for the player to care for the story at all.
Yeah, what they did is they took an amazing story, and then they laid that out, and then they completely just covered it up with everything that you need to do and pay attention to. Because, I mean, if you're running, you know, on a wall, and there's a Titan down on the ground that's an enemy Titan and a whole bunch of players, you're not going to be paying attention to what the person is saying, and then, you know, you're going to be paying attention to the combat. And the problem with the game is that you just don't have time to pay attention. The time is not there. I mean, sure, if you wanted to sit in a corner of the map the whole entire time and just listen to what's happening, then maybe you could get the entire, I guess, message of that mission and like what happened and the dialogue and stuff like that. But it's not really. It's just not there, you know.
There was just no incentive for the player to care.
Well, that really what that goes or leads into is the fact that nothing that you do actually affects the outcome of the mission.
Which is another big problem. And me and you watch we get inspiration from other YouTubers, you know, Angry Joe, Adam Sessler, Total Biscuit. And that we were actually going to say, even if, like, there's certain situations or certain missions where even if your team wins, the storyline says that you lose.
Yep.
Which it just doesn't make sense. It's just kind of like, okay, so I'm playing the IMC, and in this mission, the IMC technically loses, and
Yep.
it makes the player just kind of feel like they were ripped from an opportunity when the storyline could have changed. It could have went in like two paths, like other games do. Like there could have been different endings, there could have been different situations, the map could have changed. I don't
And
know,
that was
it's
the feeling that I had my first playthrough of the game. I came in as the IMC, and I was playing, and the very first game that I played, my team lost. And I mean, that happened for me. I wasn't familiar with the game, and so I know I sucked. But my team lost, and so I was like, oh man, that really sucks. Now I got to go back and play that mission so I can beat it, so that on my record it'll say that I beat it, because I didn't know how the game worked at that point in time. And I was like, and also I would like to know the story of like what happens next if my team wins. But it was like there should have been like a punishment and reward system or something in place. Like if you're trying to play a straight through playthrough, because each game lasts, I don't know, maybe like anywhere between 10 to 30 minutes, depending on how well the teams are doing. If you're doing that, then you play, you win, and then maybe your team gets a bonus next game. And then if you play and you lose, maybe you get a negative effect, or the vice versa. Maybe you're losing and you need a little bit of help, so you get more specters, or more ground forces, or your titans spawn in faster. Some sort of thing that affects gameplay at least. It doesn't even have to be a storyline. Yeah, they could have gone in all sorts of different ways with a storyline. Like there's the one mission where the militia is trying to blow up an IMC ship, and you're not going to stop it, because that's the storyline. Now, yes, they could have gone in and affected, okay, well, if you succeed as the IMC, then you defend the ship and they don't blow it up. But that doesn't happen. So, another way that they could have gone about that was, the militia blew up the IMC ship, but the IMC actually won this mission, so they recovered some stuff from the ship as it was like blowing up in debris, and so now they have a few extra titans.
They could have at least put some kind of like, if they really wanted the storyline to go in certain ways, they could have came up with certain reasons where the ship was still available or something like that.
Right.
It just, I don't know. It feels like a missed opportunity, or basically what you said. It was just half-assed. It was something that was tacked on at the last minute because they didn't maybe want to make it feel like it was strictly just multiplayer. They wanted to give the people who like story some kind of thing to gawk at, but it was just it feels like a huge misstep.
Yeah. And like I said, even with the multiplayer, because that's obviously their core.
It's basically the main focus
That's
of
the
Titanfall.
only focus
You buy
of
Titanfall to play the multiplayer.
And
It's kind of like the argument that you buy Call of Duty for the multiplayer because no one cares about the storyline.
But it has a storyline, and I've actually played, of all the Call of Duty games that I've played through in the entire storyline for each and every one. Same thing for Battlefield. Now, I love Battlefield more because I think Battlefield is better, and I'm going to get a lot of hate for that, but I don't care. Battlefield's better. I just said it, there it is. But the storyline in that game, I enjoyed it, and it was long. And same thing for Call of Duty. And so, I mean, for something where Call of Duty, I know a lot of people that buy an Xbox or, another gaming console, the PlayStation, just to buy Call of Duty. And that's the only game that they buy. And they buy the Call of Duty headset, and they buy the Call of Duty controller, and they have all this Call of Duty paraphernalia, and all they do is play multiplayer. They don't give a crap about the storyline at all. But guess what? The development team put a story in there, and that story is long, and it's engaging, and you care about what's happening because it's unfolding before you. So when a teammate of yours dies, you're like, oh crap, I didn't see that coming. And there's several different elements that they get into in that, and it's just really good. But Titanfall just didn't do that at all. And I mean, the multiplayer in Titanfall, like I said, there's certain parts of the multiplayer that should be there. That this is the bar and this is Titanfall. It just, they didn't pass it. There's no party system. There's no there's no private matches. None of that stuff is in there. And I mean, yeah, maybe they can put it in a patch later, but I paid $60 for a completed game. I didn't pay $60 for early access Titanfall because I didn't. I bought the full game, and the full game came with like we were saying, a half-ass product.
It just brings this question: do you really think that Titanfall should have been $60, or do you think it should have been like maybe a $30 or $40 title?
I could go with a $30 or $40 title. I mean, I think everybody would say that. And
yeah, I think anyone would agree. A good game like Titanfall at $30 or $40, it would have sold probably twice as many copies. It probably would have got lots more, good scores. Especially
and they're still
going to
they're still going to get their money out of it though because of the season pass. Now, I was really excited when I finished the storyline about the season pass, but come to find out, the season pass, as far as we know, doesn't include any new storyline at all. It's just going to be new maps, and I think they may be including stuff like guns, but I think they've also said that they're not giving any new Titans either, and so that all just sucks, Initially, when they were advertising the season pass and you could pre-order the season pass, they didn't even say what was included at all. And so when I finished the storyline, I was like, oh, well, let me get the season pass because, then I can play the next chapter in the story. Well, I'm going to have to wait until Titanfall 2, if there is ever a Titanfall 2, to figure out what happens next because it's not in the season pass.
Apparently they announced that there is a sequel in development and that it would be on all platforms, I think, except for the Wii U, probably.
And the Ouya and the 3DS and...
But yeah, I think we could probably both agree that there's titles out there like Titanfall that are really good. They're definitely AAA titles, but they lack one aspect that makes it a complete game.
Yeah,
and that
it really breaks the game.
It's
altogether.
Like our the time we were talking about Metal Gear, where it needs more to justify $60. Because I would think most gamers would probably agree that they don't exactly enjoy spending $60 on a game. Anyone would probably agree that they would love if new games weren't $60. That's one of the things that PC gamers have over console gamers is that it's usually $10 cheaper. The digital copy is like $50 instead of $60. So I would have to say that I really wish that publishers knew more about what gamers wanted because it always seems like they never do. There's always these missteps or miscommunication between gamers and publishers and just the company itself that they think that they're delivering a product that is worth $60 and it's just not the case in some situations. Where Metal Gear $40, definitely not worth $40. Titanfall, maybe I would think maybe $20 less would justify it, but $50 would still probably be a good buy, especially since you would be able to get so many hours out of it.
Yeah, you're still getting the season pass too, and that's another $20. I think it's actually $24, $24.99. So that's $25. I could be wrong about that. It may be $20. But which I think leads us into our next topic, which is microtransactions and the companies like doing the whole money grabbing thing.
Microtransactions. Since I'm a big MMO guy, I know a lot about microtransactions because I've had to deal with it with free-to-play MMOs. Mostly free-to-play games do this, but we're seeing it a lot more in games that you actually buy now, like full retail games. I heard like Gran Turismo 6, I think, and Forza Motorsport 3 have these cars that you can pay to get immediately without having to earn them, but they're like $100 to just be able to unlock that car. And it just makes you laugh. Like, these developers and companies think that you just have hundreds of dollars to shell out. Like, gamers are just fundamentally like rich to no extent at all. Like, we are just able to throw around hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and it just makes me think that there's just that these companies have no idea how gamers are at all.
Right. Well, I mean, it pulls you into the main thing about like who are these people that made the game? Well, they're a company. Okay, what is a company's purpose? A company's purpose is to make money. Making money. That's the only reason that a company exists. I mean, sure, yeah, the developers that are actually making the game might have a lot of, like, you know, heart and soul in the game. I mean, I'm sure that the dude that made Zelda, he cares a whole lot about that game, and that's everything to him. But the people that run the joint are like, well, you better make a good product because we need to make money. And that's the whole thing, is making money. So, you know, you get Star Wars. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. I was so excited about that game. Big letdown for me. It just couldn't hold my attention, which was very unfortunate. And I'm a big Star Wars fan. I love Star Wars. And I tried so hard to get into that game. And I still go back to it because, like, I watch a Star Wars movie and I'm just like, I really want to play a Star Wars game. And The Force Unleashed sucked, so let me play, you know, an MMO with other people because that's cool. But I paid for the game. I paid full price for the game. And I'm so lucky that I didn't buy the special edition or whatever. I paid full price for the game, and then what happens?
It goes free to play.
It goes free to play, and then there's all the microtransactions that they have on there, and I mean, microtransactions. Here's how I feel about microtransactions. There's mainly two different types of microtransactions. There's microtransactions that completely screw everybody over, and then there's microtransactions that are just like, it doesn't matter. And the
that would be considered pay to win, which is what you were talking about, like where you pay money to be able to get something that other players either can't get or have to earn, and that's usually the case of pay to win. Then there's cosmetic, which is thankfully what most online games do. It's very, very cosmetic. You want to make your lightsaber look cooler? Well, pay us $5 and you get a color that no one else can get. Something like that. Or, you know, you want your character to look cool? Well, here, he's all sparkly now for $3 or some shit like that.
League of Legends, their big thing is skins. Skins are, you cannot buy them with in-game money. You have to use real money. And my only complaint about that is the cost. The overall cost of a skin for a new champion is, I think, $20. Now, the game is free to play. And anything that actually affects gameplay, you can buy with the in-game money, which is influence points, and the real cash money is riot points. But at $20 for a skin, just the way that you look for one character, that's a lot of money. Because, I mean, if you think about it, how many characters are available for League of Legends? There's a lot. That's a lot of characters. And for every character, there's anywhere between one alternate skin all the way up to 5, 6, 7 alternate skins that you can choose from. So, I mean, there's a package that you can buy. I think it's like $200 or something. It might even be $2,000 for League of Legends, where you get a whole crap ton of stuff. But I mean, that's just too much money, you know? I feel like a skin should be $5, $10. I mean, depending on how new it is, you know?
See, that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, I play DC Universe Online. I talk about it all the time with you. And one of the things that came out recently was just a package of a couple things that you can buy via microtransactions. I mean, it's basically a little sale. They call it the Booster Bundle. It comes with some things that help your character be able to like get crafting done easier, find the little collections. You get like something called badges that allow you to replay content, and then like a little, you know, cosmetic thing. But it's $20, and it's just it makes you think, like, so okay, I'm already paying for the game. because an MMO, there's like some kind of subscription usually, even if it's free to play. There's
Yeah.
always a subscription model, kind of like what the Old Republic has. There's a subscription model still with the cash shop, but it's just I don't understand how you can ask for something in the cash shop that's more than your subscription rate. Like, I don't understand that.
Yeah, that is pretty ridiculous. Now, I will say the one thing for Knights of the Old Republic is that if you pay for a subscription, even though it's free to play, if you pay for a subscription, they actually give you the in-game, the real money. Yeah.
DC
and you can
Universe
buy,
does that too. It's called allowance.
Yep.
Is what they usually coin the term as.
And I mean that's a good thing. I would say that if that wasn't there, then it would be completely unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Because like in Star Wars, what I used that for is expanding my inventory, and that made life a whole lot easier for me. There's also a thing that you can get to, I think, be able to run at like level 10 or do something at level 10. It may be get a mount at level 10. I'm not sure. I can't remember.
These little teeny perks that
make the game
you more or less
bearable.
earn them. You more or less earn them if you are paying the subscription rate, and that kind of makes sense. It kind of feels like veteran rewards at that point. Then.
Yep. But still, it's just like the whole paying $60 for up front and then it goes free to play. I think that there may have been small in-game rewards for it or something like that, but it really just doesn't transfer over. I mean, $60, they could have given me a few months of subscription instead, Said, oh, well, you bought the game and then now we've gone free to play. Well, here's so many months of the game subscription time for you because you paid that money and now the game is free. So it's kind of like a gesture back to me, or any other player for that matter. And the fact that they didn't have something like that to that degree is really upsetting. I mean, you look at SimCity. Now I hate Origin and I hate EA games. I mean, their whole what they're doing is just stupid. And I mean, there's certain parts of it that are good, but there's a lot of it that's just flat out stupid. They're trying to compete with Steam. That's not going to work. I'm sorry. You can take as many of the games away from Steam being able to sell as you want, but Steam's still got you beat. But anyway, SimCity. I bought SimCity new, and when it came out, and I think I actually traded in a gaming controller for it. There was like $100. That controller sucked. Paid $100 for a controller. It was terrible. But anyways, I got it new, and then they were like, well, our game is broken, and there's a lot of parts that suck. So here's a list of games, and you can choose from one of these games, and you can have it for free. So I think I got Far Cry 3 for free, or something like that. There was a game that had like just came out, and I got it for free, and that was really cool. Because I didn't have to pay for that game. So that was EA's way of saying, we're sorry. We really screwed up, and we released something and you paid full price for it, and you got the short end of the stick, So we're sorry, and here's the way that we're going to try to fix the situation, remedy the screw-up that we made.
Yeah.
But other companies just aren't doing that, I mean, with the whole cash grab thing where people will launch an MMO, make you pay full price for it, and because you want to play, you're going to pay full price, and then you're going to pay $15 a month on top of that until it goes free to play. And then how much money have you spent? By the end of like the third month, you're already over $100.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, like, at the end of the day, more and more you see microtransactions popping up in games that it feels like it doesn't even belong. I made a video about Steam Early Access, and a lot of these early access games have a cash shop with microtransactions, and it's like if you're in early access and not a beta test or anything like that, like you have a fully functioning cash shop or I can pay like $20 for my freaking hammer to look spiky or some stupid shit like that. But your game doesn't work fully yet.
Yeah.
I don't even understand. And I was gonna
Yep.
say like it's kind of the same with some of the examples you gave, because in EA's case they're pushing out games too fast, to the point of where the game's not even complete because they're trying to get the money back that they invested into it, and ultimately it screws up their expectations, and it's really their own fault, because like I said, these companies and certain developers just, they're not gamers. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to sell the game to a gamer at all. And
No.
if they really knew communication between gamers, and if they really had any idea what it was like to be a gamer, these microtransactions would not be so macro. Is the way to put it. Like, because something in the cash shop for $20, it's not a microtransaction. It's not. It's almost damn near the game right there.
Yeah.
I buy 3 of something that's $20, and more or less some games have them like that, where like a $20 thing you can buy them over and over again, because it accumulates, or it's something that your character can get multiple times. And it's like right there, I just spent for a new game. I could have bought a new game right there.
Shoot, on Steam with some of the sales, you could get for $20 4 or 5 games, even more. And if you're paying attention to the sales, and a microtransaction of that grade is just, it's way overkill. I understand the purpose of support us. This is the only money that we make and all that other stuff. But like, get over it. That's the business that you're in. The video game market isn't always going to be booming. You're not always going to be making a whole lot of money. There's times where the video game market is just going to go up and down. So if you're a developer in that market, get used to it. If you're going to be pushing out this game and you're going to be spending all kinds of money, make a better budget. Stop spending money on all this crap that you don't need to be spending money on. If you're trying to make a next-gen game, you can't afford it, don't do it. Don't make the players suffer, because in the end, we're going to hate you for it, and we're not going to buy any more of your product. That's just how it is. Like Titanfall, the next one, I'm probably not going to buy it. I'm not going to be interested in it because of what they released to me here. Star Wars, same deal. I'm really disappointed that they screwed me over like that. There's another game that I purchased that I backed on Kickstarter called Stonehearth. I'm really excited about that game. That game has got some really cool ideas, and they released an early alpha version on Steam. It is so broken that there's hardly anything that you can do with it at all. And the only things that you can do with it, like they stop functioning in the middle of the game and the game crashes on you. And where should we lay the blame? Should we lay the blame on ourselves for being interested in something like that, or on Steam for saying, oh yeah, well, your content's good to go, we're going to go ahead and put it up on the store for everybody, or the developers for putting out content that is just so broken and then charging you out the butthole for it? It's just, where does the blame need to go? And that leads all back to my comment earlier about these are companies. And the point of these companies is to make money. That's it. And it's really disappointing when, as a gamer, we look towards the developers as our idols. These are the people that make the games that we sit down to enjoy for hours and hours and hours. And the developers, they put a whole lot of time into it. That becomes their life. But at what point does the developers' life go from enjoying the game that they're making to trying to make something that they're going to make money off of, and then
more or less please the publishers? Because we all know there's times when it's the developer's fault, and then there's time when it's the publisher's fault.
Yep.
For sure, a lot of times when you look at EA, it's the publisher's fault, because they had to push out the game, and developers just had no time to complete it. The Old Republic is a really good example. That game was released 3 or 4 months ahead of its time. That's why so much content was cut. That's why when I was playing the game, there wasn't a lot to do. Once you hit endgame, it had 2 raids,
Yep.
maybe three PvP zones. There was just not a lot to do, and it's EA's fault for just telling BioWare that they had a deadline that they were simply just not going to meet. And it's really, really heartbreaking to see a game that you're so excited for, and then you end up getting gypped over. It's really discouraging. It almost feels like this is happening more and more as well, which is even more scary. And I was actually gonna say, you can say what you want about Nintendo, but Nintendo has stayed away from this, and it's really, really good to see a publisher and company stick to what the gamer wants, more or less. And yeah, you can say Nintendo went the casual route with the Wii, but there were still some solid titles, And what the best thing about Nintendo is that you knew when you were buying a game from Nintendo, and it's still like this, it felt complete.
Yep.
It felt like the game had the developer's heart and soul in it. They knew exactly what they were doing. They knew exactly what they were creating, and it feels complete for its price point.
And then not only that, but when you bought the game from Nintendo, when did you ever have to get an update? You know what I mean?
Very, very rarely. I can only name one game. No, I can name 2 games on the Nintendo Wii U that has DLC. And one of the games is free with the DLC. Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. The DLC is free. Sonic Lost World. The DLC, I think one of them is like $10, and I think one of them is free. But it's not even a Nintendo published game. Just try and name one game besides Fire Emblem Awakening where Nintendo had DLC for it. Or the game was buggy and glitchy as hell. Name one game that you can think of from Nintendo like that.
You just can't. And I mean, that's the thing, is like when they release a game, they've tested it for all that crap and have pretty much made it flawless. I mean, I'm a huge Legend of Zelda fan, and there are some spots in those games that you're like, okay, that's a little funky, but they're so rare and so difficult to find that it's no wonder that they were like overlooked, But the thing about it is that those problems are so minuscule and rare and few and far in between that it's not a problem. When you purchase the game, they don't have to send. I mean, not that it would have been possible with a Nintendo 64. Well, here's the second cartridge that you put on top of your other cartridge to plug into the Nintendo because we kind of broke something. It's impossible. You can't do that. So, I mean, that's the way that the companies should be thinking now, is their fail-safe is, well, we can update the game. Stop thinking like that. Some people don't have the internet, They go out and they purchase the game, and then that's it. They might live in the boons and, like, their sticks and never have the opportunity to go back to a store and get it fixed, They buy that game, and then that's the end deal for them. I mean, if I bought Titanfall and I lived in the sticks, I'd be disappointed because I couldn't do anything with it anyways because it's online only.
It's online only. And it's just like you said, like Nintendo just has this stamp of quality where I literally cannot think of a Nintendo game that was glitchy or buggy. I really can't, but you can name numerous ones from Sony or Microsoft or EA or Konami or just tons and tons of games. The list piles up, and it's just like, what happened? What happened to quality? They're not even
small titles. Yeah, they're not even small titles. They're core titles.
AAA titles.
Yeah, and you're just like, okay, guys, what happened?
Like I said, it just brings up the question of like, what happened to quality?
Yeah.
What happened to
pride?
Like basic bug testing? Like I remember, like Battlefield 4's launch is a good example. the game was just launched, and I
Oh my
heard like
gosh.
horror stories where the game was just crashing,
Just
crashing,
don't just
where
don't even talk to me about
where
it.
certain guns didn't work right. The certain maps just were not loading. You would not be able to see other players shooting you. Like you would just die all of a sudden. You have no idea what was going on. And it's just like, but you release this game in this state, and it's just I don't understand. Like how can this go through Q&A? Like how does that get through?
Yeah.
I don't
Quality
understand
control
anymore.
is just completely non-existent at all. And I mean, that goes into another thing that I wanted to talk about, and I think we're getting close to time to being done. But like the time frame in between games for some of the larger titles. I mean, the Call of Duty franchise, they put out a game almost every year now, don't they?
Yep.
And I mean, that is stupid. That is just really stupid. You got to spend $60 a year for every title, on top of the DLC or the season pass, whichever way you do it. That is ridiculous. I mean, I remember when Borderlands came out, right? That was a long time ago. And then Borderlands 2 came out recently, you know. I mean, yeah, it was a good while ago too, but there was a huge gap in the time frame. And like Adam Sessler said, you know, you got to be gone for a while for me to start missing you. And I thought that was a very valid point. You know, these game companies, they're pumping out these games and just throwing them at us, and I can't keep up anymore. I've actually developed a whole new strategy for how I buy games, and that is, I play a game until I try to beat it, and then by that point I try to purchase another game. And by the time I actually do that, the core title that just came out is now $20 or, you know, $30 because it's on sale, because it took me that long to beat the game. And so the core titles, I'm not buying them anymore. I bought Titanfall just because I was like, hey, you know, I haven't bought a new game in a while. I haven't paid full price for a game in a while, and there's a reason that I don't do that, and I experienced that reason.
Exactly.
But you know, I can't keep up with the games anymore. There's so many core titles, and then other titles that are interesting, and then not to mention with the whole launch of indie games, there's no way to keep up with these games anymore. They're pumping them out too fast, and when they're pumping them out this fast, they're pumping out crap, you know? And it's just...
I would have to say, like, the drop in quality is hugely apparent in these games that are pumping out way too fast. I mean, let's look at Activision with their Call of Duty titles, right? They pump them out too fast to the point of where it's literally the same game that you bought not even a year ago. I mean, sometimes these games aren't even a year apart. They're literally the same year.
Yep.
Look at what happened to Guitar Hero. Guitar Hero is an example of a AAA franchise that fell onto itself because it was being created too fast.
Yep.
And you got to remember, like, during high school, like, Guitar Hero was huge. I bought Guitar Hero 2 when it first came out because everybody was playing Guitar Hero. Everybody was playing Rock Band. And then
Chris's mom
died.
Plays. Yeah. I remember going over to Chris's house during high school, and I'd knock on the door, and I'd hear the music stop, and then his mom would come answer the door with a guitar strapped on. And she was good. She could beat all the highest difficulties and no problems at all. I mean, the big thing with what Guitar Hero should have done is, at a certain point after the game was released, say, you know, a year, maybe two, they should have started just releasing songs for free, and then that's it. And then they wouldn't come out with another one for, like, you know, 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. See, that's what you know, certain companies do well. They take their time. They make you, like Adam Sessler says, they make you miss the game. I mean, Infamous is a good example. Infamous 1, I think Infamous 2 came like 2-3 years later, right?
Yeah.
Then they had their big DLC for Infamous 2, and then Infamous Second Son just came out. This is a 3-game franchise in the span of, what, 6 years?
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed is probably going to be down the pipeline of a game going down the shitter, because there's just too many. There's too many games coming out in the Assassin's Creed franchise. I mean, like, here's a good example of franchises that are going down in quality. If you started last generation, but you have more games in your franchise than there are fucking other big game franchises, then there's a problem.
Yep.
Like, Assassin's Creed has what? There's 1, 2, 3, 4 in the main series. Then there's, like, Revelations. And then they just released Unity. Then there's, like, the handheld titles. You have almost, like, 10 games in your franchise, and you're not even 10 years old yet.
Yeah.
Calm down, slow down, make players actually think about your game a little more than, like, oh, there's the other Assassin's Creed game. Like, do I really want to buy another one? You can love Assassin's Creed all you want, and they're decent games. I didn't like them personally, but
too repetitive.
It's the fact that these companies are just milking a game just because it's successful. It's not going to spell success for long if you keep pumping them out. Players are going to get sick of them. Players are going to catch on that they're being suckered in, which is why I don't understand how Call of Duty players haven't figured that out yet. I mean, there's there's only 4 Battlefields to how many Call of Duties. It's baffling. It makes it. Sometimes I'm embarrassed to be a gamer.
Yeah.
But I think we've covered a lot of these topics in a really thorough way, and I pretty much think that we should probably end here just because we've talked for a really long time now. Next time I think we'll just try and get some people on. Maybe I can probably call some people. But yeah, this is definitely something to look forward to, guys, if you like this kind of discussion. We obviously take a lot of inspiration from Adam Sessler. He does this on his Rev3 game channel, like, weekly. But I personally, this is what we love to do. And once again, I'm Glenn, a.k.a. Vagrant from OmniGamer.com. You can find me at www.youtube.com/thealphatester. That is my YouTube channel. You will also see this on the OmniGamer YouTube channel. That's probably where you're going to be watching it now. You can find Lord of Tomes at his own YouTube channel if you want to go ahead and give your YouTube channel. Chris?
It's just Lord of Tomes. It's pretty simple. That's all there is to it.
But yeah, that's it for this episode of whatever we're gonna call this. But I hope you stay tuned, and I hope you get excited for maybe a weekly discussion that we're going to be covering every week or so. But yeah, that's it for this one.
Yeah, maybe you guys could even ask us questions about topics that you want to see talked about too, because that would be nice.
But yeah, this was just kind of a free form. But yeah, look forward to more, definitely, and we'll see you later.